assemblage of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. In-person attendance by members of the public is prohibited, and all effort will be made to permit public attendance of this meeting in the manner specified below, via remote access by internet, telephone, and if available via public broadcast of the meeting by Malden Access Cable Television on public access television channels. Public access will also be provided by posting draft minutes and/or a transcript, recording, or record of the meeting on the City of Malden website at cityofmalden.org as soon as practical after the meeting. Additional information and guidelines for the public can be found here. There's a link if that I won't read through. So with that, I believe we're ready to begin. So first, we will do a roll call. Is that right?
Yeah. Roll call. Kramer.
Here.
Yeah. Sullivan.
Here.
Sherwin.
Here.
King.
Here.
Dogan.
Here.
Senator Laka. Dave, can you hear us?
He's on mute. It looks
He
like
is on.
Yeah, I can hear you here.
Okay, so you're here, right? Okay. All right, so we're missing Emily tonight. All right, so we have our 5 regulars plus an alternate. You're good to go, Nate.
okay. One second. I got rid of the agenda here for a second. Okay, so so first we are going to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Did anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes from the last meeting? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you. All right. All right, we'll call it. Kramer.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Sherwin. You're muted, Adam.
Yes.
Thank you. Dogan.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so we've got everybody. Minutes are approved.
Okay. So now we will move into our first and only petition for tonight. It's petition 20-018 by Patrick C. MacDonald, Esquire, on behalf of 30 Marvin LLC for a variance of MCC 1216-010, Chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 2020 as amended by the City of Malden, namely frontage, single-family dwelling as per plans RES 034785-2020 at the property known as and numbered 27-29 Marvin Street, Malden, Mass, and also known by City Assessors Parcel ID 168542244. Before we hear from the petitioner, Nelson wanted to explain a little bit about what was going on with this. Go ahead, Nelson.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this is actually a petition that this board has seen a few times in the past, and I think some of the people on this board have seen petitions like this. So they're requesting a variance for frontage, not because they don't have the proper linear distance of frontage. The problem is that the way our ordinances define frontage, frontage has to be on a public way or a private way that's been accepted by the planning board and the city. Basically, what we have in the city is a series of, or a number of unaccepted streets, which means they haven't gone through that process yet with the city to make them accepted. So if you have a property that's on an unaccepted street, you technically have zero frontage. Although you may have 50 feet, 75 feet, you could have 200 feet. Technically speaking, you have zero. So what the board is doing is either granting or not granting a petition which will declare that linear distance across the front of the lot as frontage, although our ordinances say it's not. So I think that's the simplest way I can put it. I'm sure Attorney MacDonald was gonna dive into that also, but that's essentially what you're voting on tonight.
Thanks, Nelson, and I'm sorry, I should have said hello and introduced everybody to Patrick MacDonald and Rob Nakashian. Did I say that correctly?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so Attorney MacDonald, or did you want to speak to this?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Attorney Patrick MacDonald with offices at 479 Eastern Avenue here in Malden. And I represent the petitioner on the matter before the board this evening, 30 Marvin LLC, and its principal, Mr. Robert Nakashian, who is also virtually in attendance with me at the hearing this evening. As Commissioner Miller indicated, this is a fairly well-defined request by this petitioner. The board members may recall, you would not, Mr. Chairman, not having been on the board at the time, but the other board members may recall that this exact petition was before the Board of Appeal a little bit less than 2 years ago, in January of 2019. And when I say the exact petition, I do mean the exact petition, the same parcel, the same owner, the same issue that required the relief requested, and the exact same development proposal. The board at that time did grant the requested variance. It was recorded, there was no appeal, and the formal decision was recorded in a timely fashion at the Registry of Deeds shortly thereafter. But unfortunately for the petitioner, who was involved in other development projects, this was not at the top of his list for development purposes at that particular point in time. And also, unfortunately for him, he was unaware that variances have an expiration date. They must be acted upon, and permits must be pulled within 1 year of the grant. There are provisions under the statute, under the Commonwealth statute, for extensions of that for up to 6 months. Mr. Nakashian was unaware, did not consult with me prior to that, and any request for an extension must be brought. It can be granted in the discretion of the board, but it must be brought within the before the 1 year period elapses. And he did not do that. He attempted and appeared before Commissioner Miller earlier this year in the spring, looking to pull his building permit, and was advised by the commissioner that, sorry, you can't, because this variance has expired at this point in time, and you did not seek and obtain an extension of it in the time period provided for by statute. With respect to the delay of getting in front of the board now, because this was done in the spring, this interaction between the petitioner and the building commissioner, that delay was occasioned by COVID, or I represent to the board that was delayed by COVID. There was the straight up shutdown that occurred, and the corresponding backlog in matters to get before the board. So although we filed this renewed petition, I think in January or August of this year, as the board has worked its way through the backlog, we weren't able to get a hearing date until December. But that's what brings us before the board. As I mentioned, it is the exact same petition that was previously heard by the board and acted favorably upon by the board. This property at what is known and numbered as 2729 Marvin Street is actually two distinct lots, each of which is slightly in excess of 5,000 square feet. They are contiguous, and they are in common ownership with Mr. Nakashian's LLC, and they are to be combined for purposes of this development proposal into merged into a single lot. When last before the board, they were still being separately assessed by the city. It appears that the city has not, as it sometimes does, merged them for tax purposes. So again, They appear to have technically distinct parcel numbers for tax purposes. That appears to be the case, but I represent to the board that they will be merged for purposes of development proposal. The proposal itself is frankly very straightforward. This property is located in a Residence A zoning district, and the petitioner's proposal is to construct a single-family residential dwelling on what will become a 10,000 square foot plus parcel after the merger of the two existing parcels. The structure that is being proposed is, with the exception of frontage on a public way, an entirely zoning compliant proposal with respect to all dimensional controls that apply: lot size, density, frontage, and all setbacks, height, etc. If it were not for the frontage on the public way, he would not need to appear before this body for relief, because he could have very easily obtained a building permit for the use and the structure that is being proposed. For purposes of statutory variance analysis, I would respectfully suggest to the board that as this proposal did a little less than 2 years ago, it continues today to be a petition that meets the 3 statutory criteria for a discretionary allowance of a variance request by the board. With respect to the first criteria, that there be something unique with respect to the lot, I would suggest to the board that there are actually 2 things that make this lot unique. First of all, it is a what will become an in excess of 10,000 square foot parcel in a residential zoning district that abuts a private way. Although private ways, unaccepted private ways, are not unheard of in the city of Malden, they certainly are not something that is prevalent throughout the zoning district in general. I'd also suggest that with respect to the lot itself, the soil conditions meet the statutory criteria. The board may note from reviewing the plans, which again are exactly the same as those that were before the board 2 years ago, the siting of the structure appears to be skewed somewhat, closer to one side, not centered in any way on the lot. And that has to do with the underlying soil conditions of these parcels. They abut a federal flood zone. This is the drainage area for what I think is technically called the Rumney Marsh over in Revere, a little bit further down the road in Revere, and it's the natural drainage area for that body of water, and it flows through this area here in Malden. I believe actually runs all the way perhaps down to Everett, where it might disappear into the ground at some point. But as a consequence of its proximity to that marshy area, the soil conditions of the lot are suboptimal, and the reason that the structure itself is sited, as you can see from the plans, in a somewhat skewed place on the lot is to move it away, as far away from what constitutes the marshy or potentially marshy portion of the land, so as not to create flooding or problems for the structure itself. The board may also note that the plans themselves reflect that the foundation for the proposed structure will be what I believe is referred to as a flow-through foundation. This is a type of foundation that provides for the natural flow of subsurface water without creating an impediment or a blockage to it, thereby eliminating or greatly reducing opportunities for problems with the structure itself, or backups or changes in the way water flows that might affect abutting properties. With respect to the second criteria that is promulgated by the statute, that of the need for the petitioner to establish a hardship, financial or otherwise, I would simply say to the board that I think this is one of those rare occasions as a practitioner where I can confidently represent to the board that there is a significant hardship here. That being that you have what is, when combined, a large lot greatly in excess of the minimum requirement for single-family dwelling, located in a Residence A zoning district, and as a consequence, its use is restricted to single-family residential dwellings. But in the absence of the relief that's being requested, this petitioner could not build and develop a single-family home on a zoning compliant single family home on a zoning compliant single family lot. And therefore, this entire 10,000 square foot parcel of land would be rendered useless for all practical intents and purposes. And finally, with respect to the third statutory criteria, that being that the proposal not substantially derogate from the intent and purpose of the zoning statute, I would again respectfully suggest to the board that is not the case here, that this proposal, again, to build a single family home in a zoning compliant lot in a Residence A zoning district, and only asking for the board to recognize that the approximately 100 square feet of frontage on the unaccepted public way is not an insult to the zoning ordinance. We're not proposing an unrealistic or unreasonable use of the property. The structure being proposed is entirely consistent, and as I said, entirely zoning compliant, and that therefore this is not something that it constitutes a slap in the face to the zoning ordinance that governs its development. And consequently, therefore, I would again respectfully suggest that the criteria have been met for a discretionary grant of the relief being requested, and we are asking that the board act favorably on the petition. I'm available to answer to the extent I can any questions board members may have. Mr. Nakashian, again, also present for that purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nelson or Rob, was there anything else you wanted to add? There was work done to the lot already, right?
Yeah, yes. You know, we cleaned the debris and we had to cut down the trees just to level it off.
Mr. Chairman, just to expand on the floodplain issue that Attorney MacDonald had brought up, I think this is, he could correct me, either the third or fourth time this property is before the board. Previously, there was a portion of the property that was within the floodplain. And what the owner did was got permission through Conservation Commission to do some fill on the property, which then consequently they provided the new elevations for the property to FEMA, and FEMA then pulled the property out of the special flood hazard area. So they've issued a letter to us, which is a letter of map revision, because those changes don't get put on the map very frequently. You have to wait till they'll wait till they'll get 6 or 7 or 10 changes to a panel before they actually change it. So they've actually issued a letter to us saying that the map has been revised and the property is no longer in the special floodplain hazard area. So that's the issue that Attorney MacDonald had previously referenced, and it's the reason for the construction of the house the way it is with the flow through foundation, because although it was pulled out of that area, that doesn't mean that it doesn't still have some possibility of flooding under certain types of storms and conditions.
Okay. Did anyone else on the board have any other questions?
I don't have a question. I would just make a request that if there's ever a future petition that references a prior decision, if you could notify us of that, it would just be helpful for us to know that in advance. Most of us already had notes on this, so it would have been just helpful to just for us not to have to recreate the wheel on this.
I will certainly do that, Member Sherwin, and my apologies for not including it in the package. I thought it would be.
Fine. That's fine. It's just we just make it a little easier next time.
Okay. Does anybody want to discuss anything about this? I mean, it sounds like everyone's been through it before. Any new questions based on the new application? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I motion to approve it. I motioned to approve it 2 years ago, and I will motion to approve it again for the same reasons. This piece of land would largely be useless if we don't give it a variance. So I think it's more of an appropriate grounds for a variance for the reasons stated in the prior decision that we issued.
I'll second that.
I agree. I think that, just being at the property today, I think just having that house there and seeing that people dump stuff there, and I think just having the presence of people in the area will be an improvement to that, that wooded area, and won't, it'll hopefully prevent wanderers from doing whatever they're doing back there.
I just want to note one thing for the record. There aren't any raised hands for if you're opening it to the public or closing any comments to the public. There aren't any raised hands that people wish to speak. There are 3 other attendees. Just so you'll know.
Okay.
No one has asked. No one's raised.
All right. There's a motion that's been seconded, so we should do a
All right, we'll roll call that. Kramer,
yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Sherwin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Logan.
Yes.
Thank you. All yes. Petition granted.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
So our next meeting is scheduled for January 20, 2021. 6:30.
2021 has a nice ring to it.
It sure does. Sure does.
You should be COVID free by then, right, David?
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Mm.
You're doing pretty well for attending.
Can't wait for the new year.
All right. So I think
All right. You want to make a motion to adjourn, or does anybody have anything further for a public meeting?
wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Enjoy the snowstorm.
Thanks. Merry Christmas.
So, sorry, what was the date again on our next meeting?
20th.
January 20.
20th, okay.
20.
Thank you.
Big day. New president and a Board of Appeals meeting.
Oh, that's the day that President Biden's getting sworn in.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Not a national holiday or anything, is it?
That-
Don't
That's
feel
almost
like
as big,
it.
almost as big as the day we got you, Dave.
What's that?
Almost as big as the day we got you.
Yeah. All right.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, John King. Second
Second.
by,
Second.
thank you. All right. Motion to adjourn. Kramer,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Sherwin,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Logan.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So adjourn at 6:30.
Merry Christmas.
I think this is a record.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Merry Christmas.